What I love about LinkedIn is it's really the only professional social network out there. What I love about YouTube is you're really getting to know the person so much better over a 20-minute video. Some of my videos are even more than an hour. In this video specifically, I was promoting a course, and I've had so many sales come directly from this video alone. That's my general philosophy with providing content. If I was just starting off, to me, there's a lot of value in hiring a designer. I'm really big on including visuals with all of my content. This is my most successful LinkedIn post that I've ever had. It's not just a YouTube video, right? This would just be a total waste if I only produce content for one platform. Now I have an infographic, right? All I'm doing is taking elements that we used in this video and putting that on an infographic. You see all 10 of the dashboards here. This could easily go on LinkedIn or X. The problem is not a lack of information. We literally have the answer to anything that we want if we just search long enough. It's really the ability to explain something in a curated way that doesn't overwhelm someone, that gives them just the right amount of information and the amount of mental stress that they need to get what you're saying without going overboard, and then maybe pushing them somewhere to where they can go even further with it.
Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is the guy behind the most beautiful dashboards in finance and accounting. He's a social media powerhouse with nearly 500,000 followers on LinkedIn, 55K on YouTube, and another 50K on X. He's the founder of ModelWiz. He is a CPA. We are super excited to be joined today by our guest, Josh Aronoff. Josh, welcome to the show, my friend.
Cheers, Pete. Great to be here.
And Adam, what are 3 things the audience will learn if they stick around until the end today?
Well, I am super pumped about this show because I'm going to implement all of this after the show. And the 3 big things that I'm going to implement are, number 1, it's how to grow an audience on multiple channels like YouTube, LinkedIn, and X, and how to create the right type of content to attract audience that fits your ICP. And finally, you learn how to convert this audience into high intent leads. So let's hop into it and, let's figure out how this magical man grows these massive social audiences. So much smarter than I'm doing, by the way.
He's ahead. So one last thing too, before we jump into it, folks, we will start the pitch slap up again next week. So if you would like to pitch your business, your software, your services to the audience, and a reminder, our audience is mostly B2B SaaS founders and growth marketers. Email us, producer@rb2b.com. We'd love to have you up. The record number of demos, I believe, is 36, something like that, which is pretty wild. So drop us an email. Tell us what you're doing. I'll check out your website, and we'd love to have you on next week. But this week, we're all going in on Josh. He's your CFO guy, as you can see by that just incredible neon sign behind him. So for context, Josh, we're going to get all into your content, how you're thinking about it, your process, how you produce this stuff. But first, because it is so important for everyone to understand sort of what is the North Star, what all this content is steering people towards. So let's start out by having you give us a little rundown of what ModelWiz actually does.
Sure. So it really started with my accounting firm over here. And Adam, I hear you talk about Alina from Chili Piper all the time. She's actually one of my most tenured clients, which it's been great to work with. And that was when I started producing content. And at the same time, I developed this tool to automate a lot of the work that we were doing for the early stage startups that we were working with. And the way that it works is it's an Excel add-in that in essence allows you to create investor-ready financial models, whether you're raising capital, whether you're reporting to your board of directors, or you just want to get better insights into your business. It'll automate the information from your accounting software, bring it into Excel, and allow you to then customize it as you need.
That's pretty incredible. What are the typical types of companies that you usually work with? Like size?
So SaaS is probably our most common industry that we work with. Generally, companies maybe under 200 employees are still using a tool like QuickBooks Online. They don't need a full-blown ERP like NetSuite or something a little bit more sophisticated. We work with also a lot of accounting firms, helping them kind of reproduce the same formula that we've used ourselves.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Well, thanks for that overview. That's going to be a great setup because we are going to jump right into content. So, Josh, I know you have some great slides to share. I've got some questions too. Also, audience, feel free to drop in questions throughout this to ask to Josh. So I first want to ask, so you're kind of spread across multiple channels. You got LinkedIn, YouTube, X. Could you just quickly give us an overview of how you view the function of each channel? Is LinkedIn more of the awareness arm versus YouTube is where people can dive in depth? How are you thinking about that?
I really see all of them in many ways as attracting the top of the funnel. You're introducing a piece of content that hopefully resonates with someone. They're either going to start following you, or ideally, you then lead them into your newsletter where you get them into the middle of the funnel. You could start nurturing them, and then you could ultimately sell. I do think certain platforms are more valuable than others, especially given what you're ultimately trying to sell. What I love about LinkedIn is it's really the only professional social network out there, right? People are there, even though there's some cringe content out there. For the most part, you're there in a professional setting and trying to understand what other people are doing. What I love about YouTube is you're really getting to know the person so much better over a 20-minute video. Some of my videos are even more than an hour. So same purpose, capturing that top of the funnel, but different strengths and weaknesses of each.
And on LinkedIn too, I think just another great thing about LinkedIn is I feel like more than any other social media platform can really curate your audience to a specific type of person and persona by connecting with people, engaging with certain people's posts that are in a certain domain. Now you get recommended to them. You can connect with people. As you start connecting with, say, 20 people a day, all of a sudden your requests go up from people in your audience. And I just think that's a really beautiful thing that just sets LinkedIn apart from the rest of the pack. Well, let's dive in. I know you got some great, you want to go ahead and share your screen and sort of go through some of this process in terms of how you're thinking about content, both in terms of creation and then also for, getting leads, feeding them lead magnets, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. Why don't I share first some of our most successful posts that we had across both platforms? So I'm really big on including visuals with all of my content. This is my most successful LinkedIn post that I've ever had. I believe it's like over 12.5 million impressions. And this was maybe like the 5th time that I've posted this also. So that's also really interesting, right? You don't really like post the same YouTube video multiple times, but on a platform like LinkedIn and X, every like 3 months, maybe even sooner, you could really repost the same thing and you'll get a pretty big reaction out of it.
And Josh, can I ask a clarifying question here? So how much more did this pop than the next best post of it? Does that make sense? Question make sense?
Yeah, I think this is probably like 5x the next best post. This is like a real huge outlier, which every now and then happens. The idea with building an audience and really just like so many things in business, it's never linear, right? You always have this like few small concentrated events that like put you in a whole new chapter. You gain like tens of thousands of followers in a really short period. This is definitely one of them.
I also want to call out for the audience too, just because I like to point out patterns from episode to episode. We had 2 other really good LinkedIn creators. We had Will McTeague and Eric Bartaker. And folks, if you joined either of those episodes, you'll notice this sort of visual content, these one-page cheat sheets. Will uses a lot of carousels. Have been giving at least now 3 creators in the past 3 months that we've had on really outsized results. So just a huge note there. Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? Do you post anything?
Yeah, keep it going.
Or is it 100% on LinkedIn?
Honestly, it's very rare that I won't accompany an image. That's just my style. I think your content, Adam, is amazing, and you're perfect proof that you don't need images in order to grow an audience. Our style, the way that we just did it, I've been blessed with an amazing designer on my team who I've had since day one. This is a really big contributing factor to it.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm trying to use them more, and I can't get the workflow down.
Well, I do have a bunch of content forms that I do on LinkedIn that I'm hoping are going to serve for inspiration for you that I'll share in just a sec. But
Right.
Here's just some other content that I've done really well. again, because we're an Excel tool, anything that we post about Excel generally does the best. It also happens to capture the largest audience as opposed to something related to like financial planning and analysis. A few other ones that have gone really well. I actually have this as a poster hanging up to me right here in my office. And it's really not just LinkedIn. Some of my other content that I've done really well, this is an example of my most successful YouTube video that I posted. And I could talk about like the psychology a little bit later about like what I think makes a post do really well in this platform versus another platform. As a little bit of a preview, I think you really need to make a very bold claim about something on YouTube and really in order to really capture someone's attention. So the idea here is like I built the ultimate dashboard and it's literally just one click. So people are thinking to themselves like, all right, what would an ultimate dashboard even look like? And what do you mean by one click? Well, what exactly am I clicking in order to see that update? So I'm not surprised that this has been one of my best videos because of it.
And then the
And
parentheses
then,
free template is great.
yeah, that's
Just
another one, right?
just add some sprinkles on it. Yeah.
So I'll
Everybody
talk in a
loves
bit about
it.
how exactly, and that's a really big part of again how I bring people onto my newsletter, how into my email list, and then eventually sell to them. I rarely see just right from when someone sees my content going ahead and selling, though. I have had that happen as well. Just a few other pieces of content that have also gone well. Some of them, they're not like bangers right from the beginning, but they then continue to grow. That's one of the things that I really love about YouTube. It's really an evergreen platform, second largest search engine out there. And you can post something and literally 10 years later, you could still be getting amazing leads. So these are just some of the content that I've done really well. I'll pause there and see if you have any questions and I could share some other stuff about our strategy.
I have a question. So, like, I'm curious about sort of your philosophy because I think a lot of people, when they start out, they don't know really what to post about. And it's after going through your content and sort of seeing what ModelWiz does, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're almost saying, hey, here's this super important thing that you can do right now. Although it's not like terribly easy. I mean, some of these videos are, like this one's 23 minutes long, right? So, like, building a three-statement financial model from scratch probably isn't going to be the quickest thing. I don't know how many of those 157,000 people actually went out and then did that. But is your philosophy like, hey, let me show them the breadth of what you should be thinking about, and then at the end with my product, have like a really simple way for them to basically do this in a more hands-off fashion?
It's a great question. There are a few things to what you mentioned. First, you said a lot of people don't know what to actually post about. And I really feel that that's the easiest part of what we're doing. As long as you really consider yourself an expert in something, there are like 1,001 questions that you can just generate in your mind that could all turn into really great forms of content. I won't go so deep into that, but like that to me is really one of the easiest parts of all this. In terms of then like, okay, what's the relationship between I'm sharing with them something, I'm teaching them something, it's not just a clickbait title, but then I'm also selling them something without overwhelming them. This is something that I really had to learn the hard way through this experience, especially in today's day and age where there's just so much information, AI is everywhere. The problem is not a lack of information. We literally have the answer to anything that we want if we just search long enough. It's really the ability to explain something in a curated way that doesn't overwhelm someone, that gives them just the right amount of information and the amount of like mental stress that they need to get what you're saying without going overboard and then maybe pushing them somewhere to where they can go even further with it. So in this video specifically, I was promoting a course. So our media brand, we have a bunch of like digital courses that we sell. We have a community and all that. And what I did was I taught one of the most fundamental parts of building a three-statement model. Now, there's so much to building a financial model. There's forecasting the balance sheet, the income statement, your headcount. I really just explained the fundamentals of how to connect the three financial statements. And then the video ends with me saying, now there's so much more I could tell you, like how to set up a driver's tab or an error check and all this. And I'd love to go into details here, but this video is already getting pretty long. So check out my course. And I've had so many sales come directly from this video alone. That's my general philosophy with providing content.
Well, can you tell us about attribution from there? Because I know attribution, especially on social, is like can be pretty difficult. Do you just go off of like, hey, I know I have this many leads coming in, and like, where else would they be coming from? Or do you have a more sophisticated attribution sort of, tech wired up in the back end?
So this definitely isn't something that we're strong with and we've improved, but definitely have a long way to go. we use basic UTM links and we kind of run a report every now and then. But yeah, this is something I wish we did a little bit better.
I hear you. I think all of us do, but attribution's tough, especially when people see your
It
video
is.
and then Google Model Wiz, and then it looks like all your traffic's coming from organic search. So, yeah, what do you
Exactly, right? It's like, where did they come from? Yeah.
do?
But, of course, you meet with the person, you ask how you found out about me and everything. And a lot of times I'm hearing that it came directly from the YouTube video.
Yeah, awesome. So so that's what's kind of working in your content. Can you tell us a little bit about your production, like how you go about actually like putting this into your flow? 'Cause I think a lot of people, especially when you get started, is like, I mean, it doesn't matter what the platform is. Like when you start posting anything or start doing content, like you have to kind of accept that no one's going to watch any of it or look at any of it for a while. And that's really daunting. And it also causes most people to quit during that stage because it's like, well, this is completely fruitless and I'm spending so much time on it. So I'm curious about how, kind of you got over that hump and then how you think about it and prioritize it today.
Sure. So I have a bunch of slides here that I could share later about like different forms of content and how to nurture the leads that you get from that content into your email list. But why don't I jump ahead to what I think is really one of the most valuable parts of the system here? And I haven't really seen too many other creators implement this. And to me, it's fairly simple. So first, I do have a designer on my team that it started off with just me and him. Now I have a video editor, I have another designer, I have a head of growth. So our team has grown. But if I was just starting off, to me, there's a lot of value in hiring a designer, someone who could not only put together infographics, but just motion graphics. And I'll show you in a sec of how I repurpose a lot of the content into the different forums. With today's day and age, it's getting even easier without using a designer to be able to use, like Gemini is really good in generating a lot of these infographics. So a lot of AI tools can help you get there. But I'm still a really big believer in like having a designer and working with them. It starts with me outlining an idea in Notion. And I'm a huge fan of using Notion because you can create a database, you could view that database in a calendar format or in a list format. And again, I could literally rattle off like 40 ideas in the amount of an hour just off of questions that I've heard people say, clients that have had issues, how exactly I've dealt with it. Once I have this idea, I'll then create maybe a Loom video or honestly sometimes even a voice note. And from there, my designer lives entirely in Figma. Now you can use Canva, you could use Photoshop, you can use PowerPoint. But the whole idea, and this is like one of the biggest things I want people to take away from today's session, we don't create one piece of content for LinkedIn. We don't create another piece of content for YouTube. The idea is we capture an idea, we capture the details of those ideas, and then we scale the graphics to fit a LinkedIn post, a YouTube post, a LinkedIn short or a TikTok short, an infographic, an email newsletter. It can be part of a course. It can be part of a webinar that we're doing. The overall library that we have sits in Figma and now is reusable into all these different formats. I'll pause right there and just see if you have any questions on that.
How big is the team that does? I mean, this looks like an enormous amount of imagery. Like,
Yeah, it
what are
started.
you looking at? Is this like, is each row a different video? Is this like many months of content, or is this like one brain dump from you leads to this?
So these are all infographics, and apologies if it's making you a little bit dizzy. Let me just pause that over here. And the idea is that in Figma, you have the ability to kind of like zoom out or zoom in. So each of these represents a different infographic that we've created over time.
Okay.
But these are built in layers. So it's not just like one image that we have, right? It's all the components that make up that image that allow us to then convert it into a landscape slide or to put it into a video in a video editor.
Right. So if I just pick, let's say that image that has, it's kind of a navy background, it's got a bunch of white boxes on the second row in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that
Yep.
that's an infographic, which might accompany a LinkedIn post or a tweet. And it's maybe even a lead magnet is like something else similar to that, but not that or something like that. And then you could take those boxes and literally write out a long form newsletter that has the illustration, elaborates with text, has the next illustration, elaborates with more text, or whatever else.
Exactly. You nailed it. And honestly, the best way to show you that is to actually show you what that looks like, right? So this is a video that I did a month ago, shaping up to be one of the most successful videos over here on YouTube. But again, it's not just a YouTube video, right? This would just be a total waste if I only produce content for one platform. Now I have an infographic, right? All I'm doing is taking elements that we used in this video and putting that on an infographic. You see all 10 of the dashboards here. This could easily go on LinkedIn or X. But again, like you said, it could also go into a newsletter, right? In my newsletter, I talked about all 10 dashboards. I introduced one. I talked a little bit about why I love this dashboard and what purpose it serves. I went to the next chapter of the newsletter and it continued. And that continues over here is a perfect GIF, right? I could do a YouTube community post with this, or I could still do a LinkedIn post with this. And I'm promoting my tool right here. You can even see I'm driving people to my YouTube video. So it's this web where every form of content is kind of feeding itself. And that continues now to endless shorts that we can create from that content, and on really with no boundary.
I have a question. So we'll have like similar themes, right? From newsletter to LinkedIn to YouTube. Will you put those out during like the same week or couple of weeks? That way there's sort of like some, thematic continuity. Is that kind of how you think about it?
Generally, if I'm producing an asset, I'm blasting across every channel that we have and driving awareness to that asset in all the different forms. I haven't really found that my audience has ever said, hey, you just posted this on LinkedIn today. Why are you sending me a newsletter about this other thing? I haven't really ever found that to be an issue. But I have wondered that when I first started of like, hey, am I going to overwhelm the audience if it's the same type of content? I haven't found that to be the case.
Well, I think it's cool too, because like if I saw that LinkedIn post and then I saw your YouTube video, I'm like, oh, here, now we can dive deeper into it for 20 minutes as opposed to a single page screen grab. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
awesome. That's awesome. I know you have a couple of others. Oh, sorry, Adam.
I got a question from the audience that I want to say. So, the content tone and length are very different on each platform. Do you have hacks to shoot once and copy paste while appearing native to each platform?
I think especially with any LLM that you use, it's so easy to adapt it. I'm not a fan of just like putting something in an LLM, copying and pasting it. I usually do like a back and forth, but generally whenever I post something on LinkedIn, I like to max out the amount of characters, which is 3,000. I don't shy away from giving I give as much of the content in the form of text. I give that same amount of content in the form of the infographic, the same amount of content in the form of a video. So I don't like tease anything really. But then taking that, like I wouldn't do that in a tweet, right? I'd maybe make a thread in a tweet, but I would take that a little bit differently. And it's so easy with ChatGPT, whatever LLM you use to do that. The same thing with the YouTube community post, oftentimes being a lot shorter.
Let's jump into content types, unless Adam had another follow-up question. And then
I certainly don't know this, and I imagine many people in the audience do not know it either. Can you explain the YouTube community post? What is that?
So that's something fairly recent, maybe like a year ago is when we started to see a lot of those posts come up. And I could guarantee if you scroll your YouTube feed for 30 seconds, you'll come across at least one YouTube community post, if not multiple. And this is YouTube's way of becoming kind of like a social media company, despite the fact that they also have this video library and search engine. So anytime that I post a video on YouTube, and you'll probably see a lot of other creators do this, it's a very effective technique, I'll create a separate post that's kind of like a LinkedIn post, but again, I usually don't make it as long, where I'm talking about like, hey, I produced this video because I found this problem over and over. And this is what I was trying to solve, which is why I took, a month to really produce this with my team. And this is what it ultimately looks like. And you can then post a link to the video where people see that in the community posts, or you could even do an infographic or a GIF. There are just so many different ways. It's very similar to doing a tweet or a LinkedIn post.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Let's jump into some content types. I know you have you got some great slides on that. I also wanted to ask you, because we're talking about designers and ways to sort of hack it before resources, have you heard of Pomeli? It's the Google Labs experiment. Have you heard about this?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, so I'm gonna drop it into the chat so everyone can check it out. Basically, it allows you to generate like on-brand content, so it says in the description. I've played around with it. It's
Nice.
pretty cool. I think it's going to get a lot better in the coming months or whatever. It's still in their like labs section. But we're all about, especially because we have a lot of early stage founders in here who have to do a lot of this stuff on their own, all about those little AI hacks. I'm a huge V0 guy as well. But anyway, I just wanted to add that in because not everyone is as far along as you and has that team. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are a lot of new resources out there. Again, I think Gemini is incredible for creating content that you don't necessarily need a designer, though I have found just because you have the tools doesn't mean that you have the eye for being able to really generate something that captures audiences. But why don't I share my screen and show you an example of a few things? First, um, it's really easy to get lost in followers, impressions, and likes. And if I'm being entirely honest, for a really long time where I was posting content, we didn't really have such a strong monetization engine. And it was kind of like a smoke and mirrors of like, hey, I have all these followers, but what is it really amounting to? And I found that, certain products are easier to sell to certain audiences, and you really have to know who exactly your audience is. But one of the most important ways to really sell to that audience, it's not so common to do on social media, especially given the fact that you're really renting their platform, right? You include a link, most likely it's going to prevent however viral that will actually go. So we try to capture leads via this idea that we'll come up with a post that has a lead magnet. That lead magnet gets people into our newsletter. We warm them up with the best of our content for the first 30 days. Then they're just part of our actual normal newsletter. And here's an example of when we did that, right? That ultimate dashboard, that ultimate one-click dashboard, again, perfect example. Created a GIF, promoted it on LinkedIn, told people to like and comment it, some amazing reactions. This is what the landing page takes people to. Close to 15,000 people on our list came from this alone. So I really urge people, like the idea is not just getting impressions, getting likes, that's good, but it has to be substantive, right? You have to at least be able to get leads, ideally eventually turn those leads into sales. Before I go over the different content types, do you guys have any questions on that, or should I just jump ahead?
I just want to say it's wild that 14,000 came from it because, like, when I look at the post, I mean, granted, I know everybody that sees a post does not comment or engage, but that's just, I don't know, overwhelmingly large compared to. I mean, I got a ton of impressions. I got 103 reposts for God's sake. So, like, I'm not snuffing that. I'm just, I guess, saying how crazy it is to get 14,000 people over to this.
Well,
Also, just, oh yeah, sorry.
Remember, this is just one post that I did on this lead magnet and idea, right? We have the LinkedIn, we have the YouTube video, which every single day is bringing us new leads. We posted this on X, we posted this on Instagram, every channel. So this is the combination of all that.
Good.
I have a question that I think might resonate with some people in the audience. So if I look at my own situation, I think the best content in terms of like engagement and literally people DMing me saying like, this is amazing, thank you very much. It's like kind of like stories and like pain from my startup journey, right? But like that doesn't equal the paid user of RB2B. So I love the idea of this lead magnet thing that puts people in your best 30 days of content. But I think my best 30 days of content are maybe not the best 30 days of content to sell people what I'm actually selling. How would you be thinking about this?
I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding the question. Are you talking about my warm-up sequence, the 30-day period, or?
I'm talking about this disconnect, which I imagine a lot of people in the audience have. Like, so if I look at you, Josh, your CFO guy, your best content is so aligned with the courses that you're selling in the SaaS that you have, right? Whereas like my best content is not perfectly aligned with the paid user of RB2B, right? So I was just bringing up that first 30 days of your best content as an example, right? I wasn't lying at the beginning of the show. It's like, I'm going to implement a lot of this in my workflow. And I loved that idea of like, cause like right now I'm just like getting signups for RB2B and putting them on a newsletter. I don't even know what the newsletter is yet, but like, you know, driving people from a specific type of content to a landing page that gets their email address and then giving them some time period of the best type of content related to that topic, right? Is a great idea. But as I'm thinking about that, if what I'm really trying to do is sell my software because I don't really have courses or anything else to sell, how do I rectify? You know what I mean? Like, am I supposed to send them like, the 10 million ARRs, the FU money of SaaS, like the "you are not ambitious enough" LinkedIn post, right? Like when like really the people who are going to buy our B2B, it's like a marketer of like a 5 to 20 person, B2B SaaS, right? Like how 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 would you be thinking about that?
So I think it's a really big piece of all of this, the idea of what is the content that gets me impressions and likes, and what's the content that gets me the actual sales. And again, it's so easy to confuse the two. And when you're getting likes and impressions, think like, hey, this is incredible. But at the end of the day, if you're not generating pipeline, it's really just inflating your ego.
Yeah.
I would challenge you though to say, I don't know if they are more different than you're making them out to be. I think, first of all, an incredible way to teach people and to really drive value through whatever you're ultimately posting about is through personal stories. In fact, I think that is the most effective way. And a lot of times people make the mistakes where they just try to explain, do this, then do this, because this is what makes it better. Whereas if you explain, I used to have this problem and I constantly was making this mistake. And it wasn't until someone broke it down to me this way that then I had this experience that was so amazing that you really give them that same epiphany that you got, which is so much more powerful. So keep that format. I think that's amazing. And that's a lot of my newsletters stem exactly from that. Where I would challenge you is it really that difficult to weave the end of your story into why our B2B is such an amazing product? $10 million is the FU of SaaS. And I didn't realize that at first because I couldn't grow my SaaS. I wasn't able to understand. All these people were coming to my website. I had no idea who they were. That's why I went to this conference and I heard people's eyes light up when I was talking about our B2B. And you can check it out right over here with a free trial.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing that I should get better at. And I want to add some like basic outreach, also, and not just web ID. Web ID is just, this is getting off topic a little bit. Web ID is tough because it's just like you need traffic to make it work. Like if you don't get a site visitor, you can't identify that person. And so like most of my readers, they'd love to send cold email and do cold LinkedIn outreach, but like they just don't have web traffic to like do our B2B with any kind of effectiveness, right? So I hear you. If I lived in a world where our B2B was like, LinkedIn outreach, email outreach, a contact database, and web ID, then I could probably spin every single post into like, and you know what? Which is by the way, it's like true. It's like the secret to all of this has been like the outreach side of it, right? Like, thank you for that answer.
I would add one thing to that. I don't know if I also feel that every post needs to be, hey, by the way, I'm Adam and this is my tool and you can check it out over here.
Yeah.
And this is what it does. There's a lot of value in just building a personal brand, and people will naturally take a look at your profile. They'll see what company you represent. They'll maybe see some other posts over time that talk a lot more. I think it's ultimately a balance, but there's incredible value in just building that personal brand that oftentimes will just sell itself.
Yeah. I mean, my philosophy was always, just try to share as much as possible in basically like take these very strong points of view, and over time people read enough posts, they click visit my website on LinkedIn. Right? Like I almost never directly sold RB2B over LinkedIn, which is the only platform I'm any good at right now. I mean, I just had a decent YouTube video, but like nothing like yours. um but like yeah, that's a very important point you make. You probably want to be 80% in your actual social media posts. Now you're selling lower down the funnel, right? Like in terms of actually having like, wrapping it up with a CTA, it's like probably no more than 10 or 20% should have that.
Agree.
Sorry,
Yeah.
a
And
CTA to something that is obviously what you're selling, right? Like
correct.
you're selling free value at the end of all of your posts.
Yeah, I think different posts have different purposes, right? The more broad and the less you are selling in a post, the more engagement and reactions you're going to get. That hopefully creates a big megaphone over time that allows those other 20% of the post where you're just doing a straight selling and reminding people why you exist, a reason for them to actually pay attention. So, okay, you probably don't want to pigeon yourself into either. I will say again, a challenge that I had early on, a lot of my posts that were successful were like the ABCs of accounting, right? This is how you read financial statements. And while that's great, the people who we're now attracting with Model Is, which we really just went all in on in the last 6 months or so, they're advanced users. They're CFOs, VPs of finance, right? That content that blew up our LinkedIn isn't necessarily going to be a direct result. So again, you really got to be careful about these vanity metrics of just growing an audience without actually being able to monetize.
Yeah.
There's a good question in the chat on this too. Does weaving in your company turn people off? Like, do they think of it as a sales pitch? And I know we'd mentioned a little bit about like frequency of doing that, but how do you think about that?
I haven't really seen that, especially whenever you're still giving value. You're teaching someone something and reminding them of the fact that you've created something that helps them take things to the next level, whether it's a SaaS tool, whether it's an info product of some sort. I've asked this question to even a lot of my subscribers that I've gotten on calls before with their feedback, and they're like, I was worried that like some of my, let's say, launches, anyone who's ever been on an email list where there's a launch, you're getting sometimes like 20 emails over the span of like 10 days of someone just trying to sell you something. And I asked them like, hey, what do you think about that? And they're like, hey, you got to eat. I get it, man. Like, I still love your content. Like, no worries. So I haven't really found that to be the case. I find it the opposite. A lot of creators don't do it enough because they're worried about turning off their audience. But as long as you're primarily still educating and providing a lot of value, I think it's totally fair game.
That is fair. I read two books. I mean, I've read more than two books, but there were two in particular that literally at the end, I was kind of pissed because they were trying to, I read a whole book and then they were trying to sell me their software. One was called The Sales Acceleration Formula. It was written by one of the HubSpot guys. It was basically like this whole lead up, building this whole problem, and then they were trying to swoop in and save the world with their feature. And another one was the Terminus guys, the ABDB or ABM people, and that sort of rubbed me the wrong way just because of the time input. But yeah, I found some value, but like it would have been nice to have value that wasn't hinged on me using someone else's product. I think that's a little fine line, and I think you do that really well. You're giving stuff away. You're teaching people how to do certain things.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. And look, you're always going to have people who are like, oh man, this is total rubbish. You just want to sell your products, and like, don't dismiss them. Ask yourself like, hey, am I crossing that line? Because it obviously is a balance. But I think majority of people in your audience should really understand that you have a business. And as long as you're not just talking about your business, but actually educating people, it's totally fair game.
We have some really good questions on the Q&A side too. Folks, you can keep dropping them into the chat too. I just popped into Q&A because I saw two of them. Okay, so I'm going to read both of these. Do you think that even good content is having a hard time to navigate the noise? How can we leverage private audiences like the ones that we can nurture and grow on LinkedIn? So like basically is good content getting drowned out by just the abundance of content, period?
Definitely. And I'm sure everyone can relate. It is just nauseating the amount of AI generated content and AI generated comments, just like it's getting worse. I'm optimistic that LinkedIn will eventually figure out how to curb this because they're probably the strictest platform in terms of like using automation. I'm sure everyone here has gotten a scary letter at some point from LinkedIn on that. I think, again, the barrier to entry for creating content is definitely getting reduced. It's very easy to produce content, but again, to produce good content, to really, instead of just prepare information, instead to curate that information in a way that really attracts people. I think that's a perfect segue to just really quickly go through these different content types of what I found really resonates with people. And then we can get into that second question. The short answer to the question is that yes, it's getting more crowded. It doesn't change the fundamentals, in my opinion, of what makes good content. So this is one of my favorite forms of content where you're just sharing a crazy amount of information You're giving people the opportunity, if they want, to just do a drive-by where they're like, okay, this looks cool, maybe save it, maybe go to the website and download this as an infographic, maybe even hang it up on my wall if they need it, because it's like a whole textbook or a chapter of information that you have in here. Then there is something explained like your five. This is my good friend Nicholas Boucher, he's got 1 million followers on LinkedIn, and he does EBITDA explain like your five. This is probably one of his best posts. And again, the ABCs of accounting is what I was talking about. Cartoons, I find are really just great. When you're a kid, you're glued to the TV. Any sort of cartoon really excites you. Again, it's this idea of like learning something is overwhelming. There's so much information out there, and you don't want to just read and have rote memory. You want it explained to you in a way that doesn't feel like you're learning, right? It feels like you're hearing the story that's a lot of fun, or you're really consuming it in a way that's very enjoyable. So that's why I think cartoons are really so beneficial. I think any sort of a this versus that, right? Adam, you talk all the time about bootstrapping versus VC. I think that puts it creates like a good structure and pattern for people to be able to follow. Just like storytelling creates a story where you're taking people from point A to point B. This creates a comparison where people can understand, okay, this is one side, this is the other side, this is where they're the same, this is where they're actually different. And you can see that it also includes other elements like those cartoons. Lists are also really great, right? So this is the idea of like people saying, I don't know what to really produce content on. Like, just create a list of something. Like, look at this over here. 536 people like this post where I just outlined 21 different types of revenue. I was shocked myself when I actually saw all this. And then this is probably one of my favorite, right? Where you come up with a creative way to teach someone something they've never really seen before, right? Financial statements are complicated. They connect in different ways. What if there was a galaxy out there and you showed how these galaxies can really connect to each other and how you can go into a black hole and come out on the other side, and now you're on the balance sheet versus the income statement? Like, this is probably one of my favorite ways. And then, of course, there are giveaways, right? This is what I shared earlier. This is another friend of mine, Rich. Look at this. 45,000 people like this, right? He just posted something and he's like, comments below if you actually want it. And his entire following blew up overnight, and he became a top voice because of it. So these are just some of the content forms that I've seen work really well on LinkedIn. And again, it's not just LinkedIn. I think this can be adapted to any form of content.
I remember this, an entire MBA fits on one page. Like,
this is wild.
When I started posting at the end of 2022, I think he dropped that. Is that right?
Yeah. I remember it was a Saturday, and I remember like all of us were like, who is this guy, Rich? And then I went out to dinner with him. Great guy. He was in New York as well.
Yeah, that's a mega hook.
For sure.
It's just a great post,
Definitely. And he's done multiple.
Look at the spreadsheet and you're kind of like, okay, that might be true, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
I really liked it a lot. I actually screenshotted it because I was like, I need to keep that on my desktop. The last two, the slide before with the universe, and then also the different keys on the shortcuts. I just thought that is so good. It's just like the way of like almost grabbing like a meta. I guess the Excel one isn't a metaphor. That's more like just a visual, like a legit visual sort of representation of what you're explaining. But this universe one's just so good. It's like a different way of thinking about something that even if you've thought about this and you're like, oh, I know about financial statements, I feel like you would still be compelled to read this just to see what the lines you're drawing for this universe metaphor. I just think it's so cool.
And again, this goes back to the idea, like creating content is so easy, right? But can you really create an idea and a way to deliver that idea in a way that people will actually enjoy it, even if they don't even know what accounting is? I remember when we created this control shortcuts, it took us like weeks of back and forth. I had this idea in my head. I'm like, we have to get this absolutely perfect. And I was on a trip with my friends and I called out, I said, guys, I'm getting 1 million impressions from this in the first 24 hours, without a doubt. I think we got like 989,000 or something. So we technically fell short, but it really just shows that just because you have the tools doesn't mean that you could actually create the content that will really deliver the value and engage people.
We got a couple questions I want to rip through. So someone asked, how do I go this deep for an area of my expertise to make so much content? I do have a lot of knowledge in my area of expertise, but I need to understand a process for putting out the topics to write on, which are actually meaningful to my target audience. So basically just like taking your knowledge and transferring that into and I've joked too, like I just one last little example, like remember Adam got really, I mean, probably a year and a half into your LinkedIn journey, and I think we were on like a team meeting, and you were writing an email to somebody, and you literally wrote it like you would write a LinkedIn post. Like the subject line was like super punchy, like a hook, and I'm like, I don't think you know how to
Yeah,
write
yeah, yeah.
anything else anymore.
I remember what you're talking about was when Stuart Cheney was like explaining to us how he automated 80% of his dev using Devon AI. And like the subject of the meeting was like Stuart Cheney automates 80% of his dead time using Devon AI.
So I guess does it just come from like I guess this is kind of a question for both of you. Does it just come from like reps and all of a sudden your brain starts thinking about it in these ways of like, oh, I can see how this could fit into an infographic or a video or like just by breaking things down into that certain content type so many times, basically does your brain just start to like automatically think about it in that way? Or was there some process you used in the beginning to try to extract your expertise and put it into this format?
Before I answer, whoever asked that question, can you just share what niche, what you're an expert in? I want to use this like a live exercise right now for us to see if we could just rattle off a bunch of different ideas. I don't know, Adam, if you have anything to share to that before. Okay, B2B, go to market. Um, Here's exactly how I would approach it, given the framework that I just shared. And again, I'm going to go back and share my screen and explain that, right? First content type is what type of cheat sheets can I create that contains a lot of information about that? So for go to market, maybe it's a bunch of different go to market terms. Maybe it's a bunch of different go to market tools. Maybe it's the playbook of going from this is my very first day working in go to market to I'm now a 10-year seasoned veteran expert where I could explain all that information. Taking that over here, right? Explain like you're five. What is go to market? What do these terms actually mean? How exactly do you set up a basic funnel, a basic lead magnet, a basic outreach campaign? Continuing over here, right? What sort of cartoons can I create where maybe one cartoon represents an email, another cartoon represents LinkedIn, another cartoon represents a YouTube and the different forms and how that could be illustrated? This versus that, right? Inbound versus outbound, YouTube content versus LinkedIn content or whatever. On and on, right? Lists, just rattling off 100 different definitions of something. Taking something where it's maybe you're showing an email and the email is representing, I don't know, this one isn't as easy. I need to take a few more minutes, but there really is no limit, and especially with using ChatGPT or Claude, like this should be the easiest part, the actual idea. Creating that content, creating the hooks, that's where you really become an expert the more reps that you get.
I would also piggyback on that or build on that and say, looking at even if someone is in a different domain, Josh, actually, you're a perfect example. So if I was Rajat, I would go through your posts, look at the ways that you're describing different ideas, and in my mind, think about how I could frame those or those different content types within my own domain. And sometimes too, just seeing how someone else did it, especially if they're in a different field, because then like you're not really going to, you have no risk of ripping them off, right? You're just kind of taking inspiration from the general style. Um, so that's something I like to do is just like really try to take in as much as I can to grab inspiration from. But your slides really sum it up much better.
That one-click dashboard is exactly what you mentioned. Another friend of mine, she's an Excel creator. She created this really successful YouTube video called, this dashboard updates with one click, and that started the inspiration. With YouTube specifically, that's actually a very common approach. I don't know if anyone has heard of these tools like 1 of 10 or ViewStats. The whole idea is that you type in a topic and you find content that not only did well, because of course doing well is relevant to your audience size, but is an outlier, right? Is a 1 of 10 for that actual channel. And then the idea is you use that as inspiration to create something for yourself. So yes, I totally agree. Especially for YouTube, that's a great idea.
What were the tools again you mentioned?
1 of 10 is a really popular one. Mr. Beast has his own called ViewStats. There are a few others that don't come to mind immediately. You could also just manually yourself, right? Just look that up. But these tools do a better job.
I mean, let me give you a great example of this. This last YouTube video that I did was if I started a SaaS in 2026, I'd do this. We haven't promoted it on any other channel than YouTube. It's got 16,000 views, and my videos get 2,000 or 3,000 when I send traffic.
That's an outlier.
Right? But it's because whatever, like that hook is working right now. It's like Eisenberg, Hormozy, like whatever. They have huge videos that are basically like, if I were blank in 2026, starting from zero, this is what I would do, you know? So yeah, real life
And
example.
I'm one of those 16,000 people, by the way. You said that your YouTube content sucks. I totally disagree. I love your videos. They're really great.
I didn't say it sucked. I said, if it came across that way, I'm saying it wrong. I think I'm a master at LinkedIn, and I've yet to master YouTube as a channel in terms of delivering what it wants from me. Does that make sense?
I think you're well on your way and you're just getting the engine going. But I hear what you're saying, that you have a lot more of the framework defined for LinkedIn versus YouTube. But I think it's really starting to fall into place for you.
Thank you. Well, this last video would it's certainly moving in the right direction. Speaking of, we should drop in the link to our audience. We have a YouTube channel for this show specifically now, so that if you don't want to miss an episode of this ever, you can just subscribe to the channel. Pete, can you drop that in real quick?
Yes, I can.
All right.
I
Yeah,
can.
I don't know what's going on. It's not in my yeah, so we'll drop that in. And then Josh, you had an incredible offer for the audience.
I do. Yes.
Let's talk about that.
So all of you SaaS founders out there, if you're trying to raise capital, if you're trying to report to a board of directors, or if really you're just trying to make better sense of your business, a financial model is easily the most important tool to help you understand where your business has been, where your business is going, what levers you can pull, and what that'll ultimately look like. Which is exactly why I created our tool, Model Wiz. Again, our number one industry that we work with and the biggest experience that I have is SaaS. So for all of you out there who want an investor-ready, board-ready, management-ready financial model that you can generate in literally minutes, you can just go to this website, modelwiz.com/RB2B. You'll get the chance to work with me directly, and I could promise you I'll create something better than you've ever seen before to help you understand your business.
Is anybody in the audience interested in understanding the financials of your business better? Do you know when I was, Josh, I was doing up until maybe a year ago, I was just looking at the bank account and being like, okay, what was the balance on the first of the month? And then I'd look at the balance on the end of the month and I'd decide whether we had a good month or not.
Well, I will say bootstrap businesses have a lot more luxury than VC-backed businesses because there are no external reporting that you need. And as long as you're generally profitable, you're keeping an eye on your bank balance. And honestly, oftentimes that's enough. But this could also help. But I don't blame you. Oftentimes I do the same with my business.
Yeah. Well, I now have something that I like a lot more. My business coach actually suggested that the way that I view our business, it's kind of it's not really like the SaaS P&L that we had made for us. It's like cost of people, sales and marketing, sorry, up higher, it's the cost of the data and servers and stuff. Then it's labor, sales and marketing, and then one other category. And it's I have 6-month rolling averages, all of them. I see if, they're moving up and down. I'm that's just how I always think about it, and it really works for me.
Nice. Yeah, when you're talking about really,
I'm optimizing for 6-month rolling average profit.
Nice. Yeah, what you're talking about really, it's just a rolled up version of the full details of your financial picture, which I'm a huge believer. And again, it goes back to even just the content idea, right? You don't want to overwhelm people with a ton of information, right? You want to provide it at a very high level. You want to invite them if they want, they can drill down, they can go deeper. It's the same thing with your financial picture. You get a high level dashboard of what's going on. If you want to, you drill into the full P&L. Majority of the time, you won't even need to.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Labor, non-labor sales and marketing, other operating expenses, and COGS,
nice.
Which is data and servers.
Yeah, without going down the rabbit hole, there are two ways you could roll it up, right? One is based off of cost type, where it's this is what I paid for advertising and marketing versus people versus, professional fees. The other is a departmental view, right? This is what R&D is costing me, sales and marketing, customer support. And ideally, really, you have both of those that have the same bottom line numbers, but are different ways to look at it.
Yeah. Sweet.
Um,
That's a great show.
this has been awesome. This has been awesome.
Yeah, this is fun.
Josh, where can people find more? I mean, I know YouTube and LinkedIn and X, so let's start dropping in some links.
Oh,
Just
Andy
pop in.
Seth just
Sure.
booked with you, Josh. You're going to really enjoy meeting Andy Seth.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait, Andy. I'm excited.
What's up, Andy? Thanks for showing up.
You guys can find me, your CFO guy, on any of my channels. If you want to send me an email to say hello, josh@modelwiz.com. You want to send me a LinkedIn connection request, just put in the comment that you were at this webinar. So sometimes I get a lot of them, and it takes me a while to go through, but I'll fast track those.
Well, I just dropped 3 links in for you, Josh. You got your LinkedIn, YouTube, and modelwiz.com. So folks, check those out, bookmark them. Next week, we have an exciting show. Adam and I listened to a podcast about a year ago, and it was Sam Parr from My First Million talking to, basically when he started his first business, talking to a competitor. And they were just talking about like how they were thinking about different things while they were building the same type of business at the same time. We loved that so much. Next week, we're going to have on Joshua Perks from Vector, and we are going to talk about sort of the strategy and ideas and thoughts that we all had during both of our journeys and compare those and look at the different bets that people made versus different information and probably a lot of the same information. So that's going to be a great one. Josh, thank you so much for joining. We would, love to have you back at some point. This was such a great show. Thank you all for joining.
Cheers, guys. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
And yeah, thanks for coming on January 6th, guys. I know a lot of people are still sort of half asleep, catching up on vacation or whatever. It's come Tuesday. Thank you very much for making it. Yeah, we'll see everybody next week.
Happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.